Hello, friends and enemies. It is the Lightning Edda. I am Hallgrim,
And I am Spotty.
and tonight you might want to put your children to bed early, and if you are easily offended, you might want to drip beeswax into your ears or go elsewhere because we're going to be talking about a few things that are not PC, politically correct.
Or again, you might stick around and maybe learn a different perspective.
Absolutely. So tonight's podcast is entitled Hearts of Thunder and Steel. And what this is our thoughts and opinions as to the main difference between the tribal Alsotru, faith, religion, spiritual path, whatever you want to call it, and the main religions of the world. Now, this podcast is the culmination of a very long conversation Svali and I had about how very different and liberating Alsotru has been for us in our tribal perspective. So, would you like to open up with anything, Svali?
No, I'll let you take the first shot.
All right. So, first off, one of the first concepts that need to be accepted is an understanding that we have been, or at least I believe, we in our culture, our Western culture, have been conditioned to want to be right. So stop and think about that for a moment. This desire to not be flawed, or this desire so that our opinions, to have our opinions be valid, irrefutable, perhaps.
And almost going with the grain, not making any ripples.
That I would say is a side effect of wanting to be right. And so the effect is a politically correct, self-editing, self-censoring society where you bite your tongue instead of saying what's in your heart, instead of saying what's on your mind, and to the detriment of your spirit. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't be polite. That doesn't mean that you don't use discretion in what you say, but the less free you are to speak your heart's, what's in your heart, the more you're going to suffer.
It seems to me that it's almost linked with a deep-rooted sense of guilt, almost as if we are not allowed to be entitled to opinions which might clash with the widely accepted paradigm, or at least widely accepted paradigm imposed or self-imposed in the Western culture.
Absolutely.
And that is one of the things where Alsotru differs greatly, where as free men, and free women, when I talk about men generally, I will be making the assumption that I'm grouping the masculine and the feminine aspects of our people in just one term, right? So don't think that I'm just polarizing everything just on the masculine side of things. But this being said, where we are free men, as free men, we are entitled to speak our mind. And people also have to understand something very, very important. And I'm going to quote somebody called Josie Garcia, who actually has been hosted on Red Ice Radio on a couple of occasions. And he has this little meme that he spreads, and I'm really fond of it. Because I say I love myself doesn't mean that I hate you. So that has to be something which is very important and taken at heart.
Oh, especially for the audience. If your opinion does not jibe with ours, then repeat that mantra. Just because we love us, just because I love myself, doesn't mean that we hate you or wish you ill. Because you can be rest assured, if we do wish you ill, we'll tell you.
Absolutely.
So, Hearts of Thunder and Steel. That's a pretty bold title. It's a bold proclamation. It's boastful, and we wear it proudly. And any who would, think to themselves, who are these people to be so self-righteous. Like I said, we're not worried about being right. We're not worried about being liked. So, let's talk about the main world religions in comparison to tribal Alsatru. So right off the bat, I want to talk about Buddhism. Just so the audience knows, I was a pretty well-read, self-proclaimed Buddhist. I was with a Buddhist woman for 7.5 years. I've traveled to Japan and have visited numerous Buddhist temples of different sects. Kobodaishi, for those who know what that is. Shingon Buddhism and whatnot. Zen Buddhism or Chan Buddhism. So I know a little bit about it. And the main premise behind Buddhism is in that you learn to let go. The ego is poisonous, it is worthless, it is a form or source of comparison by which you measure the world, and that which falls short causes you pain, and that which you measure up to or greater than inflates the ego, and this causes suffering. So the idea of Buddhism behind it, especially if you read about Siddhartha, the founder of Buddhism, was the idea of developing a form of behavior and spiritual practice, meditation, breathing, all of these things, and ethics in order to free humankind from suffering. And the only way that Buddha could figure out to do it was to stop wanting things, to let go of the fragile ego. Because we're all impermanent, we're all going to fade to ash. And for the longest time I bought into that crap. And I will call it crap because it took me a really long time to realize it, but one thing always sat ill with me, which is...
Well, it wasn't meant for you. Culturally speaking and genetically speaking, it wasn't meant for you.
Well, not just that, but yes, but not just that. The standards, the heights, the understanding that you are hoping to achieve in Buddhism. There's two schools of thought. Either one, you have to be reincarnated multiple times so that your spirit slowly becomes better and better and better at letting go, and once you reach oneness, you join the Atman, and you have this universal bliss. The other is Zen Buddhism, which believes that you can, in one lifetime, through intense training, breathing, yoga, meditation, whatever you want to call it, like there's multitudes of ways, you can let go and become this icon of behavioral control through letting go. It's a very, very pretty nursery rhyme, but like fairy tale. And the reason why I call it a fairy tale is because we are men. We are human beings. We are not meant to sit still and
watch the world go by.
If all we do is focus on our development to the point where the Zen Buddhists believe, like, because it is a hard process. The letting go is a hard process. If that's all we do, what becomes of the human race? If we
stagnate.
Well, if we want of nothing, what sends us over that mountain? What builds ships together?
And that's exactly what I was going to say. As a counterpart to this, where I find the flaw is, should we simply stand idly by, not wanting, whether or not we believe that the whole moon landing was a hoax or not, the point of the matter is that space is still another frontier that we have prodded at. We would have never gone there. We would have never tried to map the bottom of the sea out of curiosity. We would simply sit, and for the lack of a better word, as far as I am concerned, from my limited perceptions right now when it comes to Buddhism, we would simply just be. The ego in itself is not a bad thing. Wanting things is not a bad thing. And I think that to completely deny the ego is to quiet a part of yourself which will, which is necessary for survival. Now, where I compare this to tribal Ausatru is, well, our tribalism acknowledges a simple fact. We don't need to start thinking about several lifetimes. We don't need to start thinking about reincarnation. What matters is the now. And also, what matters is something very, very simple, which matters to every single living organism on this world. Procreation and sustaining the species, the continuation of the species. Asatru addresses that and recognizes that. We need not think about what will happen to me in several lifetimes. So the ego is assuaged in a certain way in saying, I am here because I am part of a line, a long, long line which stretches all the way back to the All-Father. And our little role in this, as individuals, as single individuals, is to make sure that this chain is not broken and to continue. And what we can let behind, what our claim to immortality, as written in the Eddas, is our reputation. What we achieved in this life is our claim to immortality. This is how we can touch several lives. And in that sense, one could almost start seeing an echo with reincarnations. Because we affect several lifetimes throughout our actions, throughout our deeds. Not just through our words, but most importantly through our own deeds.
And our lineage. I want to put a poetic spin on it. The thought of assuaging suffering or trying to eliminate suffering is trying to eliminate part of what it means to be
alive,
a mortal on Midgard, a human being. And I prefer to contextualize it as a story. We're all a part of a never-ending story. The story of your life begins when you were born, and it ends when you die. And the story of your children starts when they are born, and the story of your parents ends when they die. We are all memories of these interconnected fibers in the great tapestry that is the story of us. So I say suffering is not bad. I mean, it is bad, but the wailing and the gnashing of teeth, the lamenting of things lost, regret, the suffering of people is a part of our saga. It's a part of our story. And
absolutely.
When you can contextualize it and understand that the might to overcome comes from the desire to conquer those fears, that dread, right? The blackness, the darkness that waits for us.
The autumn.
The despair, right? But you cannot beat something, you cannot fight it if you do not recognize it. So you cannot struggle to erase it from your life in the way that you let go, don't want anything. Our people, our stories, our history is full of boastful, strong braggarts who, through blood and steel, merciless behavior, explored half the world. They took what they wanted, and in today's world, that's not moral behavior. We understand that. But there is a spirit there that needs to be understood. And it is the ego. It is the story of you. What are you going to take from your father? What are you going to pass to your sons? So we strive. We strive to be better than we were. We strive to gain land. We strive to gain gold. You know, I'm using these metaphorically, of course. But so there's no apology needed in being human. Don't fight it. Now, that doesn't mean don't have a code of ethics. That doesn't mean don't be honorable. But the gods are watching, and whether your story is good or bad, it's going to begin, it's going to have a middle, and it's going to end. So, on that note, we should probably go to the next religion.
Well, you mentioned suffering. So when I hear the word to suffer, I think invariably martyrdom,
Hmm.
which I would say brings us next to Christianity.
The Abrahamic religions.
So don't get me wrong, right? The idea of self-sacrifice and everything, it's a nice idea, and it can have a certain valor to it, for sure. Um, and within the Eddas, within our stories, the stories of our people, we'll find examples of self-sacrifice as well. No doubts about it. But here's where I think it falls short when it comes down to the idea of, for example, Christianity, where we can all agree that it's written in the book, Jesus self-sacrificed himself on the cross. Um, Now, between you and I, if you know for certain that this stay on the cross is going to be a minor unpleasantness in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of your life, that you know that heaven is promised and that you are the essence of of Yahweh, or of God, or whatever you want to call the Godhead of the Abrahamic religions. Sorry, is it really a sacrifice? A sacrifice is when you put yourself into a position where you will lose something, where the advent is, well, you will die afterwards. Uh, what happens afterwards, you have no clue. Whereas there, he knew. And I mean, we all say God, Father, it's written, God knows past, present, and future, and everything. So everything in that sense was predetermined. So is it really a sacrifice?
That's definitely a question to ponder. I wanna not address Christianity first,
Okay,
because Christianity is a bastardization of the Abrahamic religion.
true enough.
So what I want to say about it is this: words and deeds. Okay, that that term, that phrase, echoes in the minds of honorable people. Words and deeds. You can say one thing, and you can do another. You can mean one thing and do another and have a different outcome. But if your words say something and your deeds do something else, then it is your deeds that are speaking, and your words become false. They become lies. They become ashes. Because it's actually your deeds, the things that you do, are the only things that matter. The only thing words are good for is after you've earned the respect and trust of others, then your words will prescribe what your deeds will be, and they can believe you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a simple matter of saying, I'm going to do this, and you do it, or I'm not going to do this, and you never do. So, in terms of Abrahamic religion, and I will flat out say it is, to me, it is evil, and that will offend a lot of people, and especially those who embrace God's love. They're not going to understand where I'm coming from, but I'm going to explain.
That's why we have the podcast.
the Semitic tribes have a very long history in the Middle Eastern area of the globe. Eventually, at some point, they became slaves. All right, the Egyptians owned the tribe.
Yep.
And for the longest time, they lived in uncertainty. They were at the complete mercy of an alien power, of a foreign, uncaring, abusive power, who saw them as human livestock. What this did to them as a tribe over a long period of time is it, in my opinion, opened them up to a god. And I always call him the dark god, and I will explain why. In our tradition, in Al-Satru, the idea of being made to kneel is abhorrent. We do not kneel.
You
We
have
do
to,
not subjugate ourselves.
and you have to remember that in our view, the gods are our friends. They are not entities to grovel to. They are not entities to try and roll over on your belly and hoping to barter for some sort of peace in the afterlife. And the gods want to elevate us. The only time where, in our stories, in our myths, the only time that a god looks down upon you is if he's extending his hand in order to try and lift you up. That is why we have the stories. That the stories are there for us to raise from a low state into something higher, and it is up to us to do it.
Well, and I want to add to that too. Saying that the gods are our friends, that always didn't sit well with me.
It doesn't really exactly explain it. Yes,
the
I
way
agree.
that I view it is we are the heirs. We are the children of Odin. We are the children of the Aesir and the Vanir. We are the culmination of Yggdrasil, the world tree. Right? We are spirit made flesh. These holy powers, if that's what you want to call them, are our ancestors. Their blood runs through us, and it runs through us in the form, or is recognizable in the form of the stories. And it is all ours. Nobody else has a claim to it. No one else can judge it and have it mean a goddamn thing. So back to the Abrahamic religion. Now, before I went on this Buddhism kick, my mother raised me as a Christian. And she made me go to Sunday school for right into my early teens. And I never liked Sunday school per se, so I would always sit in the pews and listen to the minister. I'd listen to the preaching. And the way that a Christian is taught to speak to God is you view God as an all-powerful, omnipotent thing that knows all, loves all. We won't even talk about that contradiction. But essentially, we are not meant to understand God. We are meant to worship. We are meant to fall to our knees. We are called the flock, right?
The sheep.
We are meant to get on our knees, and we are meant to revel in creation, that this magnificent benefactor shining this holy and ever-giving light provided the universe for us. And psychologically, right from an early age, I rejected that completely. Because if I cannot know the ways of God, you cannot love that which you do not know, that which you do not understand. All you can do is fear it. And that's why there is the term God-fearing. When you read the Bible, Old and New Testament, there are some very glaring passages which illuminate the true nature of this God, and this is why I call it a dark God. Anything that puts men on their knees is wrong. Anything that does not elevate men through their own strength, that makes kings out of them, anything that claims to be a higher value than us. I mean, hell, in the Christian religion, we were even made from dust. And then the women were made from our ribs. So we're not even given the benefit of being kin to this thing.
No.
It created us from filth. Okay? Now, if you want to be humble and grovel in the dirt and beg and hope, because you can never know what's on the other side of death, if you want to hope that this system of belief, this system of behavior is going to benefit you, you have to remember that it comes from a slave race. It comes from a tribe of slaves who had terrible masters that made them do terrible things. They suffered short lives and then they died. So in the minds of these people, this tribe, what would the perfect God be? What God would they open their hearts to? When you've had generation after generation of slavery, the perfect master
is the one you are
is
going
the
to
one
open
that
yourself
walks
to.
through the door. And to me, this is evident, because the idea of God is the idea of worship, the idea of praying,
Mm-hmm.
the idea of you are our heavenly master, and we will toil our whole lives and subjugate ourselves conveniently to your priests, of course, in the vain hopes that when we die, we will become one with you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's something else too that to me is anathema to what the the Northern European tribes are. If we remember that the Northern European tribes, and I'm talking about the Keltoi as much as I'm talking about the Saxons, as much as I'm talking about certain Germanic tribes, the Teutons, as much as I'm talking about the Norse, we are in essence hungry people. We hunger for knowledge. We want to know what is around the bend. We want to know what is over that mountain. We want to see what is over the horizon. And yet we find in the Abrahamic religions a myth of a forbidden fruit, which is the fruit of knowledge. Yet it is forbidden. Why forbid knowledge? So we can live passively as livestock? That to me is anathema. We are here to discover, we are here to. It is our birthright to conquer the stars and to venture forth. It is our birthright to know the world we live in. And it is our birthright to know our gods. Not to simply live as, well, sheep.
Chattel. So, I mean, we could go on and on,
Yeah.
really, about the Abrahamic religions. But essentially, it is, actually, what I want to sum up is it's not our religion. And when I say our, I mean, and hold on to your seats, it's not white people's religion.
It's not white people's religion. It is not Asian people's religion. It is not. I mean,
black
it is
people's religion, red people's religion.
No, it is a religion that is indigenous origin from this one tribe, and it spread.
And they claim to be the chosen tribe. And when you look deeper into their manuscripts, they hold themselves higher than the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Jesus came along and fixed all that, but we won't get into that right now. So, our people, and a lot of people, like, I mean, you were there when that Jehovah's Witness tried to convert me in the dollar store the other day,
mm-hmm.
right? And I let her give her spiel, and I said, okay, well, you know, you took your best shot, now why don't you let me take my best shot? And I kept on referring our gods as her ancestors' gods, because as much as your good old Anglo-Christian, you know, person doesn't want to admit it, we've been Christianized. Our lands, our people, our tribes have been Christianized for 2,000 years, maybe a little bit over.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been hailing the hammer. Okay, we've been blood of the Aesir
for thousands of years.
For thousands and thousands of years. And when you learn your history and you understand that Charlemagne came in and forcefully, you know, beheaded, you know, I believe it was 4,000 pagans in one battle.
Yep.
And after he had promised that if they submit and convert to God, that they will be spared, and then just turned around and executed and said, you'll meet your reward in the afterlife. Anybody who dares say, well, that's not God, these are sinners, they're doing things in the name of God, they don't understand at all what they're talking about. Because if you claim that your God is real, if you claim that your God is a just and loving God, then this God, essentially anything you do in this God's name is a reflection of what that God means to you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Your relationship to that God. So this God travels the world, raises armies, and subsumes culture after culture after culture. It is a conquering slave God. It is a dark God in my point of view. It puts you on your knees. It makes you meek. Who wants to be meek? When someone comes and takes from you, when someone comes and tries to conquer your lands, someone tries to rape your women, someone tries to tell you that your ways are sinful or bad or wrong or wicked, You
Take
stand
your children away from you.
Take your children away from you.
Break the tribe.
You fight. You do not become meek. You stand up, you put on the war paint, you pound the drums, and you go and you take from them, and you send them back to the desert where they belong. And we've got a long road ahead of us. We have a reclamation, a rediscovery of our people's ways, of that which has been taken from us for 2,000 years. This is the path that we're on.
It's one of the things really is learning to be proud once again. Learning that you don't have to grovel in the dirt, that you can stand on your feet and you can proudly, puff your chest out and say, "This is who I am," and have the strength born of self-confidence so that any person who would come to your door, you can look at them straight in the eye and say, "You come here, you have a basic choice." And this is something that Hallgrim and I have often spoken about, is you have the choice between the spear and bread. I have the self-confidence to say, yes, I can sit down with you and hear your stories and share bread over the hearth and treat you as an esteemed guest. But I also have enough pride, and that comes from my surroundings, comes from what I've been able to do, and the people that I have been able to become kin with.
Your heritage.
My heritage, my lineage, to say that if you come to threaten this and to try and take this away from me, I will give you naught but the spear. And yes, so I believe that is our right to reclaim that. We have a long road ahead of us, but that pride is something that is ours. And yes, we can be boastful. Yes, we can brag. But know this, that in the same time, the boast and the brag is a way for us to measure and keep measure of ourselves. There is nothing wrong for me if I'm in good company with my friends, with my kin,
your tribe,
my tribe, to brag. And if Hallgrim hears me say something that seems to be a little bit over the top, he can call me on it. And that is what's going to set me back onto my tracks. But at the same time, if I tell myself, well, I've said this, these were my words, now I have to back them up with deeds, and if I succeed, well, then I am a greater man.
It all boils back to one of the topics of our first podcasts, which is the time of kings and legends, where our belief is that we were all meant to be kingly, where the best human behavior comes from when you embrace your inner nobility, your savage heart, and it allows you to be strong and free, and it encourages you to elevate others to be strong and to be free. And when you have camaraderie and when you have frith and kinship, because of that, there's no better feeling in the world. There's nothing that vindicates and justifies our time in Midgard than that kingliness that we give ourselves and give each other. We are the blood of the gods. We deserve it.
So, we've gone over Buddhism. We've gone over quickly a couple of the Abrahamic religions. Are there any others which you think we should bring up?
Well, I mean, those are the two
mainstream,
the two power players that I have experience with. Actually, let's talk about Sikhs.
Mm-hmm.
The Sikh spirituality, the Sikh religion, I have a profound respect for in most regards. They have a humility that I don't appreciate, but the way that those people behave in a tribal way, the way they take care of each other, the way that they learn to pass on their property, their teachings, their lineage, the way they give to their children, the way they take care of their elders, to me that is a model of the way good heathens should behave.
Absolutely.
They have a warrior background.
Well, they have a whole warrior caste. It seems to me, at least.
Well,
I don't
what
know if I
happened?
should call it a caste,
Yeah,
but
no, it is a caste. Well, not
hmm
so much a caste. What it is it's a commitment. They have
yes,
something called the Khalsa.
hmm
And when you commit to the Khalsa, you get an iron ring around your wrist, which, interestingly enough, our people had iron bands as
the
well.
Torques.
Yeah. Which symbolized very similar, the same thing, or remarkably the same, very similar thing. They don't cut their hair, and so the listeners know I'm also committed to never cut my hair. I'll go into why that is, but they all carry the last name Singh. When you speak to a Sikh, they'll have their first name, they'll have their family name, and they will be called Singh. Singh means tiger.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you join the Khalsa, once you are committed to being a full-blooded Sikh, you are responsible for the protection of that tribe and the propagation of its values and its wealth and its holdings and its interests, essentially.
Yep.
The women, I can't remember what they're called, but it means princess.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, they esteem their women as a reminder not only to keep home and to have a pride in their tribe, but to teach the children. It essentially is there to hold both genders to
To a high standard.
To a high standard, and to teach them how to treat each other.
Mm-hmm.
If every tiger had a princess and every princess had a tiger, you would not but prosper, always.
Mm-hmm.
And so I respect the Sikhs in those regards. As a tribe, as a culture and a people, absolutely. Now, when you get right down to their religion, however, and you start talking about their gurus, I believe
Mm-hmm.
they have between 7 and 11. I can't remember the exact number. You get into more of that selflessness for the sake of
the tribe.
The tribe, and you can actually watch. If you read into it, you can see a progression of an understanding as they go, because they were actually pacifists up until they got harangued and murdered, to the point where they're like, nope, we have to be warriors, and that changed them forever.
Yeah. Which is a state where we find ourselves. Our people were once upon a time proud, and didn't shy away from being warriors. Now we've been pacified, modified, diluted, broken. We've been meant to kneel. We've been meant to have shackles on our spirits, and we have to. This is our time to realize that enough is enough, and we have to rekindle this warrior spirit. Now, when I say this, I don't mean for you to go and enlist in the army. I mean for you to understand that you have to be able to defend what is yours and to defend your lineage and not be ashamed of doing so. And I think that's something that's very, very important that the Sikh do, and they have had to adapt, and it's our time to learn from them as well, and to do the same, to adapt and to rekindle that warrior in us.
Well, the camaraderie that they share, the generosity that they have, is evident. You can go into any Sikh temple on a Sunday, and they always have a Indian food buffet. You can be the poorest person, or you can be a king, and you will sit down and share food with everyone.
Yep.
Right. So, they have very similar tribal cultural values as we do. They know how to gain that power of tribe and personal spirit.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's all I really have to say on the Sikhs.
Well, and in a certain way, you find that also in other heathen ways. If you look at what some of the ideas of the people on the Red Road, yes, to a certain degree, they have certain pacific outlooks and outviews, but in the end, there still is the brave, right? There still is basically the idea that you can stand up and defend the rest of the tribe. And in every heathen culture that I've read or come across, generally speaking, there is always this concept of the warrior who will stand up and defend the tribe.
Well, it is a part of our birthright. I mean, it's what makes us men.
Absolutely.
And I know, once again, I'm not speaking gender specific.
No.
Like, I mean the tribes of men.
Mm-hmm.
I mean humans.
Absolutely. Anything else that we should go over?
Well, I mean, there's animist religions like Shintoism
Mm-hmm.
that believe that everything has a spirit. In Asatru, we have very similar beliefs, right? We call them the whites of field and stream.
Mm-hmm.
The spirituality of attuning yourself to nature, attuning yourself to the dead, attuning yourself to the gods. I mean, this is a personal journey. You can take it. I mean, there's just many roads. There's many ways. There's many paths, and you'll know when you're doing it right because of the joy and the serenity that you'll receive from it. Shintoism is a codified version of that. But the essence of Shintoism, though, that a lot of people don't understand when they talk about the spirit of a thing, is that the totality of the spirit of a thing is the thing and what it does and what it is. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, the spirit of a river is meandering.
Mm-hmm.
It is wet. It is ill-tempered at times, yet calm at others. It is deep. It is cold, right? It fosters great life. This is the spirit
Mm-hmm.
of
the quintessence
right.
of said thing.
Exactly. And so when you align your spirit to these things, when you become aligned to the spirit of the river, that is how you gain strength from it. That is how you come to care about it and bind yourself to the wonders of this world. It is by understanding the spirit of all things. Like us, when we practice our swordplay,
Mm-hmm.
we are learning the spirit of the blade, the spirit of steel, right? Which brings me around to the title of the podcast, Hearts of Thunder and Steel.
Mm-hmm. One little thing also that I'd like to point out, maybe as a bit of a recap, or at least going back to certain things, is also true, it has to be said, is an exclusive religion. We are not inclusive, and we've gone over this a little bit before, but it is ours, and we have to understand that, once again, it's a birthright, and we don't need to shy from this at all. As a matter of fact, if we look at Judaism, a lot of people make the mistake of looking at Judaism and thinking of the Jewish people as a religious flock, but they are a tribe, they are a people. When it comes down to it, Judaism is passed down, these traditions are passed down by blood. And nobody, at least nowadays, can raise their voices and criticize that freely without having any sort of repercussions. The Jewish people will defend that. So, to anybody who will come up to me and tell me that I do not have the right to claim this, I'll simply point them over to the example of what the Jewish people do. We're not the only ones. We have just as much, as human beings, we have just as much as a right as anybody else to claim something which is ours. And we don't need to be ashamed of that one little bit.
And we don't need to make converts of other tribes of people.
Absolutely not.
The thing about being a kingly heathen is you can recognize kingliness in other tribes when you see it, right? And you wish it on others.
Mm-hmm.
Because two kingly men who are noble of spirit will treat each other better than two wretched men.
Absolutely. And this is something, we've already covered that on the Time of Kings and Legends, so I don't feel we should really go back on it too much at length. But
so Hearts of Thunder and Steel, that's really what the gist of this is.
Mm-hmm.
I am so proud to be of northern stock. When the thunder rolls across the sky, when the wind blows,
we come alive.
We come alive. When that cold rain hits my face, when I see dark gray water off the coast in the ocean, and I see the depths, and I feel that, I can feel the drumbeat of my ancestors. I can feel that thunder so deep inside me that I almost get giddy.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's almost like an ecstasy.
Oh, it is.
And I come alive, and I feel more alive than I could ever be anywhere else. Right? We are a savage people. We come from the savage north. There are those who think of us, and they, whether they want to admit it or not, they quake with fear at the fury of the Northmen. We have been a scourge. We have been those who have brought light to the darkest parts, but we've also brought great terror. This is our birthright. The crashing glacier, the lightning that arcs across the sky, this is what gave birth to us.
And it's evident even when, for us, when we do our swordplay, when we let ourselves rediscover a martial art which is ours, which is proper to many European tribes. We learn to listen to the song of steel once again. When the blades ring against one another, it's another component of something that is culturally is ours. And again, there's a lot of people that might be out there, and if you decide to try and learn, get into the martial endeavors yourself, that they might chide you and deride you. But if you take pleasure in it, and it allows you to be alive, and it allows you to feel as if you are reconnected, as if you are starting to swim up the tides of blood that connect you to your ancestors, then by all means, be proud, and let the thunder in your heart sing along with the ring of steel. It is your birthright.
Not many people will gravitate to sword play or axe play or all those things. I can't recommend it enough. It's a great way to wake you up inside. But ultimately, I think all that needs to be said has kind of been summed up. And I mean, we can continue a critique of the world's religions and how they compare to our people and our native religion, right? Our native tribal religion, path, spirituality, whatever you want to call it.
And again, something that really needs to be said is that we're not saying to anybody, you should convert, you should become Asatru. Is if you are of North European stock, take a gander, take a chance, open yourself up, and if maybe this will allow you to reconnect with something deep inside, something that has been dormant for a long time. Now, if you are from the sub-Saharan continent, or if that is where your ancestors hail from, go there. Look back at your heathen religions, look back at your roots, and reconnect with those. Just don't lay down and kneel to something which is foreign to your blood and to your ancestors. That would be, as far as I'm concerned, the main message that us as Asatru, as members of an Asatru tribe, would hope to give to others.
Well, there's a word for those who kneel to an alien way, and it's called defeat.
Mm-hmm.
So don't let yourself be defeated. And I'm even speaking on a personal level of your own private culture, your own private beliefs. Learn, be wise, grow, explore, be courageous, but never surrender, never kneel.
And I think that's a good way to end it. Never kneel, be proud.
All right.
So this is Svardi wishing you good night.
I'm Hallgrim. Hold the heathen hammer high.